This week I have Mr. Notorious for his high, tough playing style of rugby league, Mick Crocker, on to chat about football, life after football, and what it's like to be a footballer.
Hello, Gregory.
Mate, I'm looking forward to this
Mr.
one.
Notorious.
Well,
Is that because I've got a
what
red beard and I'm kind of Irish? I've got a bit of Irish.
Wow, I never thought about that. Well, yeah, maybe a little breach of trademark going on there, but nothing official,
Sorry,
mate,
Connor.
but he's ready for a fight if you want one. Let's go.
Welcome to the Body Science Podcast, bringing you everything you need, want, and should know about health, fitness, nutrition, and training. As always, the information contained in this podcast is for the information purposes only and is not designed to diagnose or be prescriptive to treat, prevent, or manage any injury, disease, or other health-related condition.
Burn the fat and feed the muscles with this high-protein, low-carb, low-fat, best-tasting daily protein powder. Hydroxyburn-lean 5 proteins are released in a sustained chronological order, therefore maintaining their different absorption rates, fast and slow, ensuring constant muscle fuel so you stay fit, happy and healthy. This synergistic blend also includes 17 vitamins and minerals, added carnitine, and a proprietary blend of digestive enzymes, Digizyme and Orafti prebiotic to aid digestive health.
Welcome to Body Science HQ, the land of fit, happy and healthy. Today we've got one of our good mates, Michael Crocker, on. How are you, mate?
I'm excellent, Gregory. How are you?
I'm good. Now, Mr. Crocker, as he's known in rugby league circles because of his hard-hitting football game, played in an amazing 13 years in the NRL. Now, that's an athlete, mate. Like the average guy's playing, 50 games?
Yeah, so I think the numbers work out to somewhere between 50 and 70. I don't think that includes young kids that come into the first grade squad and don't play a game. So, yeah, it's roughly about 3 years, but it can be a cruel game at times, and I was blessed to have the career I did. I don't think I did everything I could to stay at that level for so long. I think I obviously, looking back now, we could have changed a lot more and been a bit smarter about looking after myself. But
Well, you obviously treated your body like a temple. 13 years in the NRL, you don't do that, eating meat pies, drinking beer and smoking cigarettes.
it wasn't too far off. That's the problem. Like back in when I first started, it was a completely different era. Like we've spoken about it before with the body science stuff. Like you guys educating us on protein was like teaching grade one as English nowadays, in terms of what people and especially athletes know about sports science. So yeah, we didn't have any of that. It was basically, it was a beer after the game for recovery, and you didn't really look after yourself, and you didn't eat right for your type of body. So yeah, there's things that could have made me less injury prone, I reckon, but like I said, I'm blessed to have played the career, have had the career I did.
Were you able to pull off 13 years in the NRL because you hit the judiciary so many times? Like you've got a record for that, haven't you?
It prolonged my career. I've got no doubt about that.
Strategy?
It was definitely a strategy. You'd have 3 or 4 weeks in and then 1 week off to rest and recuperate and come back. But I never actually went to the judiciary. I've never been.
You haven't?
Always guilty.
Like just that clear?
Yeah. But they were only little ones. They're usually always little charges where swinging arm or a late high shot or something like that.
I'm not sure where this came from, but I'm just going to read it verbatim for everyone. Notorious for his tough playing style combined with a high and sometimes dangerous tackle. Were you a high tackler, were you?
I think I was lazy. Yeah, if people step in, you just throw an arm up like that. Or sometimes I'd be next to a really good defender like a Stuart Webb who would chop them really low, so they might have been falling, just circumstantial.
Just unlucky. Yeah.
I wasn't aiming for high shots.
Mate, were you always going to be a football player? Like, did you play junior school, you dominated and it was always going to be something you did, or did you work hard?
Not really, yeah. I was always a kid. I played every sport that I could. I was outdoors every second that I could get. I played league, union, cricket, basketball, tennis, athletics, cross country, so I did pretty much everything all the way through. I played grade cricket and rep cricket all the way through until first year after school. I played rep rugby, missed out on most of the rep teams for league. I made rep in 12s and 17s, and that was about it. So yeah, it wasn't something that I thought was ever going to be a career. It was just something I really loved doing. And once I finished grade 12, obviously had options to play cricket and rugby and league, and I just love league. I always have. I love the tackling side of it. I love the physicality. And I just went and played some. I was still playing local footy and played Colts and went up into first grade at Redcliffe, and luckily got a start down in Sydney. But I was as a kid, I was a skinny little scrawny kid that could run and jump all right, but I was a bit of a sook and I was injury prone.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, and I played in this team, so we had a lot of Queenslanders might know. There's a guy called Ross Hendricks, played Queensland State of Origin. He coached us from 11s through to 16s, and he went to all the state carnivals and got the best kids from each division and brought them down to Brisbane. They got a good league education under him, and they went to Wavell College to get a good proper education. That didn't quite work out well for them, but we had it was a superstar team, and I was the 13th best player on that team. So I always had to work hard every day just at training, just to compete with those around me. And I love that challenge. And out of that team, sadly, I went on and played first grade, and I think the coach's son Trent played Q Cup, and I think that was about it. That actually went on and had a career. So
what do you think you got a career out of it, and the other guys? You said you were 13th player.
Yeah, well, like I said, I always had to work hard and try and prove myself every day. And there's a lot of kids there's so much talent in that team, and obviously there's choices that people make as well that can then send them down the wrong path, and opportunities that get missed because they're not looking after themselves off the field. So. It's sad, but it happens everywhere in sport, and you see all these kids with a lot of talent that go to waste. So it's...
Mate, there's a lot of mentoring around these days in sport. Was there any around in those days for you?
Not really. I was just lucky. I lived in a street with, I think, 12 other kids, and I was, I think, probably the third youngest. So I had all these older kids that I could look up to, and every day after school we'd come out, someone would kick a ball around or hit a ball up against a wall, and we'd be out playing league or cricket until the mosquitoes got too thick and we got called in. So I remember my direct neighbour was the eldest of the group that we had, and I think he was in grade 12 when I was in grade 5 or something. So it's probably, what's that, an 8-year difference or something like that. So I remember playing cricket. We used to play with the taped up ball, the tennis ball, so it swings on one side, and I hit him pretty good one day, and I sort of gave him a little head nod, and he didn't have to say anything. He came in the next ball and he ripped one into me, and it swung in, like hit me in the gut. And I just he didn't have to say anything, but I knew from that moment that I had to be more humble, and I learned and earned respect pretty well out of the people I was around, and obviously family as well. They had a really old school sort of culture and upbringing, which was respect your elders, and I think that's definitely held me in good stead moving forward all the way through my career.
Mate, let's touch on that family thing. How is the NRL ex-player family? Is it something you've stayed part of? Is it something that's honoured as ex-players? Yeah,
there's steps being made now to make it better, but I think club-wise it's much better. So Melbourne Storm, obviously, they have a really young history compared to most clubs. So they do a really good old boys weekend and stay in contact with everyone all the way throughout the year. But you look at a club like the Rabbitohs where you've got 15 years of history, it's hard to tie all those guys together and get in one group. So I'm lucky I've got a couple of mates that have played football and retired as well. So that obviously helps out. But yeah, it still presents its challenges, and it always will. Yeah,
nice. Well, mate, let's have a chat about you as a footballer. You bettered yourself in the NRL with which team? That's where I first met you. Not a trick question.
No, so the Roosters. I think each three clubs that I was at was a different stage of my career and my life. So I think they reflected each other quite well. Roosters was young and a little bit wild, which is the way I lived my life. Went down to Melbourne, started growing as a person, as a player under Craig Bellamy. Came back to the Rabbitohs as an older player. I was not the eldest at the club, but became a senior player and a leader and captain. So it was a sort of an evolution of it reflected my life off the field as well.
Yeah, nice. Strong club, big history. Mate, tell us about your days at the Roosters. I mean, you started playing 2001 with the Roosters, is that right?
Yep, first year. So I came down the end of 99 and played Flegg, which was under 20s down there, played a few games there, then played Flegg, sat on the bench for reserve grade on the same day, and then played the rest of the year reserve grade. Then the next year did the same, so reserve grade, and then after I think 6 rounds or something, I got to start in first grade. So it was a perfect progression. It's a perfect pathway. It's what we've gotten back to now, but obviously the under 20s messed things up a little bit in terms of how the pathway is, and the best pathway is coming in. My first reserve grade team was Quinton Pongia, Ian Rubin, Nat Wood, Brendan Hurst, all these guys that are former first graders or fringe first graders. So again, talking about earning and learning respect really quickly. When you're playing against men as a young man, you definitely get that instilled into you, and it toughens you up as a footballer.
Yeah. And that 2002 team where you got your first premiership ring, that was full of rock stars. Like that was an amazing team on paper.
It was a phenomenal team, and Sticky was his first year coaching a first grade team, and we had some great cattle. We were a really fit squad. We knew that. We started slow. I think we had a heap of injuries at the start of the year, so it was a tough road. But we knew that we were doing things that other clubs weren't, and we were fitter, and we sort of imposed that intimidation over the next few years with what we could do in between balls. So we'd kick down on, if we kicked the ball out on the first or second tackle, we'd sprint down and pack the scrum. So teams would be sitting back going, oh God, not again, we're in for a long day.
Yeah.
So when you've got guys like Adrian Morley, Luke Ricketson, Fitzgibbon, those guys, pretty much all of our forward pack bar, I think one or two could do 14 on the beep test when they stopped us. So it was a phenomenal team, and obviously Freddie there in the back line as well leading us it was a very good time to be around.
Yeah, that was the first year we got into sport actually with
I
Chooks in
remember it
2002.
vividly.
Yeah, I remember.
Wentworth Park. Nath came in with his bleached blonde hair, spiky. I think he had flared jeans on as well.
I think he still got them.
And then you came in and you actually talked a lot of sense. So like I said, it was an education that you'd think as professional athletes at the time we would have known, but talking simple stuff like whey protein and the protein window and stuff like that, which none of us had, or barely any of us had heard of, which was, thinking of where that supplement market's at now and education of people. It's really simple stuff, and it made such a big difference for us.
Mate, it's not rocket science. It's got to be smart.
It's just science.
It was funny because Ronnie Palmer,
It's just sports science.
remember when he called up, he was pretty much, I don't believe in supplements, but I've got a problem. I'm not sure if the boy's going to make the 8. And he goes, I probably shouldn't say this. He'd probably be pissed off if I say didn't have a lot left on ideas and what to do. So came in and we just dropped the basics of protein and creatine and a little bit of glutamine and the basics.
BCAAs, and that was it.
Everyone loved it. Yeah. And
Ronnie was a guru, so anything that Roddy said, we were going to take on board. And like you said, he was that old school sort of. He's the type that he's got such a positive energy where he used to talk to us about visualization and healing injuries and all that sort of stuff. So he expended everything that he could on getting us to prep and prepare mentally and physically. But yeah, it got to that point where it wasn't looking great, and those little things make a big difference in a sport team. And
mate, big steps for him to pull a sports nutrition brand in at those days because no one was doing it.
Exactly. And look at the progression of it after that.
Well, I think he single-handedly helped launch our brand. And I know it's a big thing to say. I probably haven't said that out loud before, but mate, thanks for that. Still got his signed shirt in the grand final night.
And he still looks exactly the same as he did 25 years ago.
He's always super fit.
His physique is phenomenal.
Yeah. So here's a funny story with him. He did his bit, and then we jumped into a commercial. None of us had ever spoken to a commercial or an elite team before. It was like, holy fuck, it's an NRL team. What do I do? I had no idea, mate. We ended up getting short sponsor, getting heaps of subs into you guys, and we went on to win a premiership together.
And we did, yeah. So I actually nearly missed out on this grand final too. So I think the second last round we played up in Brisbane. It was the first time I was going to play back in Brisbane against the Broncos, who grew up watching and wanting to play for. So going back to Queensland, I was always excited to play. And I remember we got there, we were playing Friday night, and on the day, Sticky said to me, mate, you're going to be 18th man today. I'm going to run with Eric Growth. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then he said, you'll be playing at Wentworth Park tomorrow against Newtown. It's like, okay, that's fine. Anyway, so I was obviously a little bit disappointed, and John Cartwright was the assistant coach at the time. He was coaching the reserve grade, so I was having a few beers after the game, and then we all ended up out together and kept looking at Cardi. Cardi was still there, so I kept drinking. I was like, well, if the coach is here, You're
a team player.
I must be all right, yeah. So, yeah, it was one of those days where drank pretty much all the way through, went straight to the airport, Henson Park. It was hot, it was dusty. We were playing against Newtown, who had Garth Wood was playing, Robbie Stinson. They were really tough footballers, and it was just one of those days where every bloke was after me because I'd played first grade, and every tackle there was a forearm or a hit across the face, and I was just get up and play the ball and just, not today, boys, please, not today. But I actually had one of the best games I'd played all year, so luckily the next week Adrian Morley got suspended, and I got a recall into the semi-finals, played good and held my spot. So
nice.
It was nearly a final series that I missed out. But again, I think that reflects how I was living my life as well. Those decisions I was making to drink and stuff, I don't think that was the greatest thing for me to perform consistently. So
Mate, we had the same type of luck on that day. ISC fucked up the shorts. They did the
How
white
good
shorts instead of the blue
That was
shorts.
the first game.
Yeah, and that was against the
and
Bronx and
Hodjo killed it. I remember that playing against his old club. Yeah, and so it was white on white on white.
yeah, and you didn't change. You played.
And it looked
unreal.
so much better.
Well, got so much media because are we the good luck charm or is it the science? And
It's definitely a bit of both.
yeah, exactly.
Combination.
We'll take the good luck charm all day long. But that launched us. We went on to sponsor a lot of teams after that, and nutrition in sport. Massage, you're doing a little bit of it, I suppose, back then. But yeah, it was an interesting play back then when it came to sport supplements. Like most people looked at you and said, "What? What's that?"
Yeah, but it's so simple. But
isn't that what bodybuilders use? Isn't that a steroid? Like that's the type of shit we used to get back then 20 years ago.
And now it's just a standard practice from everywhere, from kids all the way through.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, mate, after that, you went on to play in quite a few grand finals, didn't you?
Yes, we had 3 in a row at the Roosters. Sorry, obviously won that one in 2002, lost 2003, 2004. Also, not the greatest feelings losing grand final, but it's not the end of the world. Not winning a grand final. It's still an achievement to make it.
Absolutely.
Then went down to Melbourne. First year I was there, we made the grand final. I actually did my knee the game before, so missed out on it. And then we were lucky enough we played 07, 08 before I made the decision to leave and go overseas. Probably shouldn't have. It was one thing I wish, reflecting back, that I would have thought more about the actual decision to leave. So at the time I was, I think, mentally done. Physically I was in good shape. I had a really good year in 2008, but just mentally coming into a game, I couldn't get up for it. It was a surreal feeling to play against Manly and Brisbane and teams that you automatically get pumped for, and you're in the sheds trying to talk yourself into getting up for a game, and it just didn't have the feeling for it. So
can we touch on that a bit, or
yeah?
So, mate, how does an athlete pick themselves up when they're not feeling like it game day? Like, what type of things were you doing to get yourself in that spot?
So it was really, like I said, it was really surreal for me. So physically I felt good and I was fit and I was fast and I was playing and training really well, but I just had no emotion for the game, which was it's a strange thing, because when you love something so much, like I love training, I love being around the mates, I love competing, I love going to get out against any opposition, no matter what it is. So to be sat in the sheds before the game and just have nothing, it was literally nothing. Like he sat there just going, okay.
Yeah, wow.
And then you get out there and you do your job and you play good, but there's no feeling attached to it. So it was something that I needed to, because my problem was I train myself to exhaustion, and I put everything into training, and I'd always wanted to be a footballer that everyone wanted to be around. So I was always positive, I always had really good energy. I loved that, I love being a trainer with the boys. So it was something that was always came naturally to me. But to not be able to feel that was something different. I think looking back, I needed to have something away from football. I invested so much in my training. I spent myself at every session to be as good as I could be, but I needed an escape away from it. So
is the NRL looking like they've got a whole lot of programs in place for players now?
So this was before. So the under-20s, the silver lining to under-20s was they really brought in that culture of education. So every player in the under-20s had to work or study to play on the weekend. So that's really spread all the way up to the top end now, and all the research shows that you need to have something else outside of football. You've got to have something. All the good coaches really push that on their players to make sure they've got a hobby or something to distract them and have going for them away. So, yeah, I think it's up to 85 plus, like around that 85% now that are actively engaged in education or formal work outside of football.
That's sensational.
So it's come a long way, and coaches now are starting to realise the benefits of making sure that players have that escape as well, because it can be draining, and same for coaches. I saw it with Craig Bellamy and other coaches that they put so much into their preparation and looking after the team that they forget about what's important to them, and that's their family and living that good life. And if you have a club where you're underlying yourself with family as one of your values, then you've got to make sure that you're doing that from the top end all the way down.
I'd love to touch on the values part in a sec, but I just want to ask, did you have anyone that you could go talk to in sport back then? Because, I mean, obviously everyone's talking about mental health now and anxiety, and it's okay to talk about that. But back then, was that like a closed box? You just took that on yourself and you sat there with it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's look, I've got some good mates now. As I went mid-20s on, I could talk a little bit more about that, but it was always something like I said, for me, going into training, I always had to be positive and have that energy, and I love being like that. But at times that can drain you as well. If you're trying to lift up everyone else's spirits around you and you take on their burden, that can get draining on you. So at times, now that I'm older, I realise that I have to sometimes say, you know what, I'm having a shitty day, and just sort of really express that to let it out, because I would come in and I'd have times where my first year when I came to the Rabbits, I had left ankle, left groin and left shoulder surgery all in the off season in the space of 6 weeks. Then I was in rehab for a good 6 months, and a lot of it was by myself. So at Redfern, the gym and the sheds are all underground. So I'd come in and I'd be in a jumper some days because the aircon's so cold, and then I'd come out and be 35 degrees and watching the boys train and run around. So that was tough for me, but I always had to, I had to keep that energy, I had to keep that positivity up, and I did. But then I'd go home and I'd be exhausted from really physically promoting myself as everything was all right and everything was good. So then I took away from what was happening in my family life, and I couldn't really give to that. So that's where you have to find that balance of making sure that you've got an outlet to express it and deal with it. And at the time I couldn't. I actually didn't know that it was having such an impact on me. I just thought I was just being normal.
Yeah. Okay. That's
And then my partner, of course, said she had no idea as well. Like, she's obviously, well, something's wrong with you, and I'm like, no, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm training good, and everything's fine. So, it's that communication that's key. And my partner now I'm blessed, a really good communicator. And
she said we had to mention her today. Do you just want to drop her name?
Yeah, just.
How about we drop her Insta handling? She'll love that.
Can we get it up? Can we plug it up there?
Yeah, you can say.
Oh, actually, she's private. She's private, so I can't. You can check out the business part.
What's the business one? Throw it out there.
DukeofLondon.co.
There you go, get on board, guys.
International brand. No, but Kiri's been great for me, and I think we've been great for each other in terms of how we bounce off each other. And
she's a great outlook on life.
Little things like that where, just being able to express myself a lot more, and it's something I've never done before. And but it does have a big difference because she always gets frustrated at me because I don't express any emotions. But then when I do, she's like, "Do you feel better?" I'm like, "Yeah, actually, it does make you feel better." Like, you just, and I don't scream or yell or anything like that, but I just need to say some things at times and just say, "This is frustrating me," or "I'm feeling like this."
I mean, you were known as a hard man in rugby league. Back in the days we're talking about, you just couldn't say that type of thing out loud, though, could you?
No, it wasn't something like I was brought up showing.
Hang on, you were born just as I was leaving high school, mate. So
So through the 80s and 90s, when you were probably still a young teen.
I left school in 85, just so you were born in 1980, just so we know where we're at.
You're a young teen. You're a young man. But yeah, it was. You never showed weakness. Like any showing of weakness or pain was a sign. Any showing of pain or personal insecurities was weakness, and it's something that you didn't let anyone else know about. So you always had to portray yourself as tough and strong and resilient, and being able to deal with your own issues. And I still carry that. I think I still try and deal with everything myself instead of reaching out to others. I've never asked for help. I don't like asking for help. I never will. I don't think it's something I really struggle with. But at least now I've got the tools and the people around me to be able to deal with things if I need to.
And what about players in the modern game now? Have they got those tools now at club level?
There's so much education being done on resilience and gratitude and a lot of these things. So when the gratitude stuff came in, there's a lot of positive psychology and stuff that comes naturally to me. So it wasn't a shock. But then hearing from other players and different clubs and the wellbeing managers at all the clubs, it's not the general outlook on life. Like, I'm a glass overflowing type guy. I'm not half full. It's not like I'm over the top flowing. So for me, that was normal. It was like, why wouldn't you feel grateful for everything that you've had in your life and the opportunities you've got, and be positive about what's happening? Whereas, most people actually think worst case scenario and always thinking negatively about what their situation is. And even with injuries, if something happens, I always think the best case scenario, whereas most other people think, okay, well, what's worst case? So it's just that little mindset of different things that can make a big difference. But there's a lot of education work that goes into it, a lot of time spent on practicing it and making sure that it's relevant to their day-to-day preparation. But at the end of the day, it's an individual thing, and if you want to buy into it, you will, or if you don't, it's not going to be beneficial.
Is that being run by ex-players, or is that being run by trained professionals?
So it's been developed by trained professionals and run by wellbeing managers at the club, some of which are ex-players, but they've gone through a Cert 4, I think. It might even be a diploma now, or a Cert 4 in elite athlete wellbeing. So it's a pretty intense course, but it's something it's actually quite good in terms of building relationships and having that communication set to be able to talk to different individuals about where they're at and what they're doing. They have these heat maps and self-evaluation scale of where you're at week to week, so you get a good gauge of where you're mentally at each week when you're at training. And
is that a NRL-driven document, or is that a club-by-club document?
It's NRL-driven, by the NRL Education and Wellbeing Department, run through all the clubs.
Mate, that's sensational. So, mate, you mentioned family values when you were with the Storm. Like you said it was one of your pillars, I think was the word you used in relation. How does a football club set up a family-based model and still win football games?
So Storm's an interesting one. So they had some really great leadership when John Rebo and Chris John sort of got it up and running. They got Chris Anderson as coach. They had some really good senior players, Glenn Lazarus, Tawera Nikiau, these sorts of guys that had really strong personal values, and they brought that to the club and they built this culture around these guys that was driven by the players. It's the only way you can ever have good value systems within a club, and to build that culture is to have the senior players driving it, and it has to come from the top down. So that when I got to the Storm, that culture was already ingrained. I actually nearly didn't get a start at the Storm because when I was being shopped around by the Roosters, Craig Bellamy went up to Robbie Kearns, who I'd toured with a couple of years previously in England. He said, "Mate, Crocker's off contract, thinking about signing him. You toured with him. What are your thoughts?" He goes, "Mate, love him. Great bloke, great player. Just a bit mad. I don't think he'll fit in down here." And Craig went, "I'm going to give him a chance anyway." So that goes to what their how strong their leadership group was, and for Robbie to identify that I was a little bit mad and might not have fitted in their culture. Was a pretty strong message. And then Craig obviously identified that I was someone I'm not a bad person. I did enjoy a drink. The best thing about Craig is when I went down there, he never said to me, "Don't go out, don't do this, don't do that. I don't want you to do this." He just sat down a few of us and said, when you look around the circles, I think it was Jeremy Smith, Dave Kidwell, myself, Ben Cross, and Garrett Crossman. We sort of looked around and went, "Well, we're all aggressive, we're tough players." He goes, "Yeah, you are, and I want you to be aggressive, I want you to be tough, but you give away stupid penalties, you're a little bit reckless, and I think that is a reflection of your life off the field. If you can balance the two out, I think we'll be all right." That's all he ever said to us.
And he didn't give you any tools for that? He just gave you that and you just
left us with the rest of the team. And then obviously you hang out with the players around the club, and when you do go out and have a beer, it's all very... it's not that it's structured, but it's a good environment. So everyone looks after each other, and being in Melbourne, you're away from everyone. No one had family. There was, no one had immediate family down there. Obviously had partners and children, but not many mums and dads around there. So we were our own little family. So it was an easy one to build that family culture off, because we had to rely on each other so much off the field. Because most players, there was no Melbourne-born kids playing back down there. There's a couple now, but everyone came from Queensland or New South Wales or somewhere else. So everyone looked after each other, and it was one that really was instilled. And like I said, so when Craig was focusing too much on football and then forgetting about his family, that reflected in everyone else as well. So, and we saw the way he was living his life, and he was just fully absorbed by coaching, and it was draining on him. So that becomes then draining on the players as well. So he changed that, and he recognised it and made some changes to his life and made sure that he was family first, and then football was second. And I think that's held everyone in such good stead, and that's why he's been so successful for such a long time down there.
Well, the results speak for themselves, don't they?
It's funny because I've seen it go in cycles where at the Roosters we trained harder than anyone over. Like we trained harder than we were in Melbourne, but there was no, like I said, no sports science to that. It was a lot of fat clubs. Fat clubs. One of them. I was in that for a little bit. Finchy was in that for a long time. He came to the club, but he was still a baby, but he was like 19 or 20. And he had baby fat, and he got in there and Sticky goes, "You get under 80 on your skin files, I'll get you out." He got out of it. He got under 80 about halfway through the year. Sticky goes, "Oh mate, you're playing good footy, so we'll just keep you in there." So he stayed in there for the rest of the year. But even like hundreds and different things that we were doing that because we knew that nobody else was doing it. And if word got spread around, then clubs would be like, "Oh wow, these guys are mad." So it was down in Melbourne, like it was with the Roosters. We trained at that level, and we had ourselves up every week for 26 weeks of the season plus the finals. We tried to maintain that, and every year we tried to improve on how we were training, our intensity. And after 3 years, it slid. Like you can't maintain that for so long. So, and that's one thing that Craig identified. And we were sort of going through that period when 2006, 7, and 8 we were increasing our intensity, but things were starting to slip on in terms of what was happening away from the field. So once we got that balance and realised that when we're in training we go really hard, but then make sure we had enough time away from football with our families and to pursue other hobbies, and it really balanced it out.
And who brought that to the club? Like that's a big step in a sports team full of men to someone to come and say, "Hey, we're going to focus a little bit on family now." And
so I think it was a bit of I can't be quoted on this, but I think it was a bit of self-reflection with Craig. But he always had a coach around him as well. So he had a coach's coach. So I think they used to do a few workshops and stuff throughout the year, and obviously Craig became better at communicating and the coaching staff around him. So for him to say that, he has to also speak to the training staff, and Alex Corvo was the strength and conditioning guru. So they would have had to have had the conversation as well to say, okay, well, how do we balance this out and put what we need to in the workloads whilst giving the boys enough time away from footy to work it out. Because they changed the mould in terms of, and this was after I left there, so we always used to go play, recovery, video stuff the next day, and then you might have a field session, then a day off, whereas they started having 2 days off after the game, and then coming in and doing their recovery and review, and then start their week from there. So that sort of changed the mould in terms of what it looked like. Wayne was blessed to have that system, I think, at the Broncos as well. They were playing nearly every Friday night, so the boys would get the weekend off. And then
there's no favouritism who plays Friday night.
No, well, TV pays the bills. So, but it was an easy system for them, and it actually works because they get that time away. But you also have to have the trust in the playing group that you have. So, if back at the Roosters, like we had to do a recovery, but it was just walk down the beach at Bondi and have a swim. So, we could turn up a little bit under the weather and get away with it. Whereas, if we didn't have to do anything, we could have been in worse shape. So, you got to have the trust in the group that they're not going to do the wrong thing all weekend. They're going to look after themselves and come in on Monday fresh.
Mate, you actually love the sports science. Like you're having a chat to you. You love it. You love the SUPs. You love talking about it. When did it hit football, rugby league? When did sports science get a big play in your career where you saw a noticeable difference in the monitoring? Obviously, the GPS was a massive step forward. But for you personally, when do you think that it went from being a game of amateurs to a game of true professional from on and off the field?
It started from that first day you guys came in. So for that first association we had, like just those little things that we did, but we were blessed to have you guys around and educate us with little things, or if it wasn't directly through you, it was through our staff. So I was always interested. Ronnie would always have some different stuff for us. So obviously we got onto Tribulus and different things that started coming through, and you could feel the difference in how you trained and how you recovered. And then as I was leaving to go to Melbourne, I was in mid-20s by then, so started to get more curious about different things, and you research, then you go down, you're taking different supplements. The beta-alanine started coming in. Yeah. So I wanted to know what I was taking and what I was doing and the benefits of it. So the more
you didn't read many labels though, did you?
I didn't read labels, no. I just read documents.
Seen a few photos of you taking subs.
Oh, but it's experimental, isn't it? How you have it. Doesn't really matter how it's ingested.
No, exactly.
As long as it's in there somewhere. But yeah, and obviously as you grow older, you need to. And I had a number of injuries and stuff throughout my career, so I always had to make sure that my focus was on how do I recover best from from what I was doing. And like I said, I didn't always do that the best that I could, but I was always taking whatever I needed to make sure that I could get back and doing the rehab that I needed to do. So, yeah, I've always been interested in knowing that my body was taking a battering, that I needed to make sure I was getting the best out of myself.
So was the game harder back in the early days but slower, or was it? How would you describe the 2002s versus when did you retire? 2012 or 13? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a bit different. It was tough all the way throughout.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there was any mistake. I think the game now is fast. I think it slowed down last year just with the way it was officiated. But it's a tough physical sport, and it always has been, always will be. The athletes are getting bigger. I know that's like it's crazy how big these kids are now. And I remember doing some stuff with Queensland under-16s and presenting jerseys and shaking their hands and looking up to them. You know, that's how big these kids are at the moment. And the things they can do are phenomenal. So it's always been physical. It's always been tough. It was not that it had never been violent in my eyes, but there was, you know, you could get away with a little bit more back in the early 2000s than you can now. So I think that's for the good of the game. I don't think there was anything malicious in most of the tackles that, you know, whether it's a high shot or a late shot or a forearm to the face, which I grew up.
Yep.
I grew up at Bash Up Park at North, so it was something I just thought you did. If you got on top of someone, you put a forearm to their face. And if they got you, then you have to deal with it. So. But yeah, I don't like comparing generations, but I just think football's tough and it always will be.
And what have been some great changes to the game, like in your eyes?
I think speeding up, so anything that speeds up the game. So looking at the 40-20s and the quick taps, and players sprinting back now with the 7 tackle sets to get a quick tap out of their 20 on the 20 line. Little things like that just make it fast and flow. I think the referees play the biggest part in the speed of the game. So the more they control the ruck and say, the quicker they call held or clear, the quicker the players are going to get off and the quicker the game becomes. So that's where you get that real fatigue. And we've seen some games this year where they've let it flow, the ball's in play, and it eventually gets to the point where a team will kick out to get a scrum as almost like a mercy rule, or the refs will, and this used to happen in Origin, the refs would call a penalty after 25, 30 minutes because it was too hard. Like it was brutal. It was end to end. It's non-stop, and it was almost like a mercy call. It was a mercy penalty because the players couldn't get up. They needed a break. So and good halfbacks will identify that. So I think that's the best. That's the best our game looks when it's like that. And I think the interchange at the moment is perfect. I don't think we need to swap it. But the more the referees can control the ruck and speed it up, like if I see a player lift one leg, they should be calling release and away straight away. I think they can, and it happened in rugby as well, where the referees control the speed of the game and the scrimmage and all that sort of stuff. So the more control they have and the more empowerment they have from, you know, the staff that are looking after them at NRL, I think Graham Annesley's doing it now, the more empowered they are to make their own decisions and to call the tough calls, and I think the better the game's going to be.
Yeah, nice. Speaking of better the games, you mentioned Origin. When was your first Origin jersey?
2003. It was I got picked as a hooker. So PJ Marsh broke his neck, and I'd been playing a little bit of. I was a bench player at the Roosters and played a bit of hooker and back row, and got a start in game 2. It was a very surreal feeling. I think I was actually disappointed in game 1. I thought I was the worst. I was reading my own press, and in the paper they were talking me up for Origin, and so I thought I was not guaranteed a jersey, but sort of had pictured it in my mind that I was going to play in game 1, and I missed out, so I was disappointed. But you know, to get the call in game 2 was
scored a try or something, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a pretty emotional time. Like it's something that as a kid I always wanted to play Origin, and every kid growing up in Queensland does. My old man took me to the outer when I was
how good was it?
I was 10.
Yeah.
My first experience of State of Origin in the outer, 10 years old. There was a guy running past dressed as Benny Lice, full head tape wig, blue jersey. I remember I had a pie, and he was running past, everyone's throwing beers and pies at him. I was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh." Had a shot. I don't know if I hit him or not.
Unload that.
Yeah, but you could feel, like I remember I could feel and hear the hits on the ground, and it was it's a pretty surreal feeling to think back and remember the moments like that, and then be able to run out and running out at Suncorp or Lang Park is. I don't think there's any better feeling at Origin time when you're running out and the flames go up and the crowd roars. Like it's something that gives you tingles thinking about it. I remember watching a game from home when Greg Inglis was playing fullback. I think Billy must have been out. Queensland had defended 3 or 4 sets on their own try line, and they showed footage of Greg waving his arms up to the crowd to get them to cheer, and then you heard them roar through the TV, and like it's moments like that. Like I'm at home watching that, hearing it, but then you imagine being there in front of 55,000 or however it is. That noise is something that you just can't. You can't. There's nothing that replaces that,
mate. So look, just talking about that nervousness you're talking about there. Kick-off, are you thinking, fuck, don't kick it to me, or kick it to me? You want your hands on the ball straight away?
Yeah, the quicker you get involved, the better.
Yeah.
Like it's the same as anything. I always try to get my hands on the ball or get a tackle as early as you could, because once you get that, I used to spew on the 2-minute bell as soon as the 2-minute warning bell came on, I would spew. So whether it was nerves or probably became habit by the end of my career, but there was always that sense of excitement, just get me out there and get it done. So that's why it's hard being a bench player early in my career. I've got a lot of nervous energy. It's very very draining it's hard to control not spending all your energy on the bench. So yeah, getting out there as soon as you can get your hands on the ball, the better. Especially if you get a chance to tackle, that's more fun.
Was your game day protocol the same on Origin as it was on a normal?
Yeah, I tried to be as relaxed as possible. The more I thought about football, the more fatigued I get. So I was the type that I'd love to have a chat with guys at the ground that didn't want to talk about football. So you surround yourself with those ones that have a bit of fun and have a laugh, whereas you've got other guys, like Ryan Hoffman was very specific and meticulous in his preparation, a little bit OCD, and he didn't like that. He wanted to focus on his football and stuff, so he had to disassociate and make sure that he had the right people around to have that really relaxed environment. And then once I think it's about half hour before the game, you start your prep in the warm up. So as soon as that half hour mark came, then that's when you flick the switch and go.
Were your headphones guys? You had the loud music going?
I liked hearing other people's music, and you can usually hear it with the old school headphones. You could hear the song, so I'd start singing around them and dancing, or just telling jokes, or just throwing the footy around and passing. It was anything I could do that was not talking about my role on the day or what I was going to do out there. And then once that 30-minute mark came, I'd grab the halfback or whoever I was playing around and start talking about the game and what we needed to do.
And mate, how hard was it to go out of Origin camp where you're pretty much rock stars for a few weeks to real life?
It's actually, I think it's for anyone that goes into Origin, you come in, especially as a young kid, you go in there and you have, so for myself, I got in there thinking that I should have been there in game one, but then when I got there, I was at a table with Shane Webke, Petro Sivanasiva, Darren Lockyer, Andrew G, all these guys. And I'm sat there going, Gordon Tallis, and I'm sitting back going, I don't belong here. Do I really belong here? Like, you doubt yourself a little bit. So until you actually get out there and do it, you've got to earn that right and respect. So yeah, but I think anyone that goes in, no matter what age you go into that camp, you come out a better player and a better person. You've matured, you've learned a lot, you've seen how the best of the best prepare and what the coach's expectations are of you as a trainer and a person. And I think you take that back with you, and you have and it's not arrogance, but it's that confidence when you come back into your clubland, and then you really, I think it accelerates your career and your development as a player and person.
Nice. And mate, how much does an Origin camp differ to an Australian team camp?
Oh, just depends. Like it's
because you're living more together.
Yeah, so the Origin ones there's 10 days. Yeah. So you're in, and with Queensland we were blessed. So we had pretty much the same squad for that whole 10 years. It was pretty much the core players were around throughout that whole time. There's a few that came in and out of it, obviously throughout. So it felt like a brotherhood. It felt like a family. Whereas the Australian ones, I had a few different camps, but I had one tour when I was early, but that was with a heap of Roosters teammates and other young kids. So especially the Penrith boys that won the comp that year, we had a really good time. So it was, it's all, and it's dependent upon the the coach and the environment. Obviously, the Origin is intense, so it's short and sharp, but it's about gelling as a unit, and you don't have much time to really prepare and learn some stuff. Whereas with the tour, we had 7 weeks the first tour I went on, so you can develop things over time. But then once you get into those 1 week camps, it's exactly the same. And everyone that's in there, they're all good. They're all good people, and you've obviously got a lot of respect for them because they are where they are.
Yeah, nice. So you still got your first Origin jersey and your first Australian jersey?
I have, yes. I've got those. I've got a heap of jerseys. I just looked at a few the other day, actually. But yeah, I've got none of them up on the wall. But my
that
first.
was going to be my question. Where are they?
Yeah, no, they're in a box in the shed. But yeah, my first Origin one's a number 9. I've got a number 6 Australian jersey, which I'd love, because I was actually, it's a really good trivia question actually. So I was number 9 for Queensland before Cam Smith came in, which not many people know. If you said who was the Queensland hooker before Cam Smith, people say like Jason Smith, and they're thinking way back. So there's myself and I think Sean Berrigan played in between that time, and PJ Marsh. So there wasn't too many other options. So it's a strange little period where I got to hand my jersey over to Cam. I knew he was going to be right. So
you did it right after that?
And
they always say where to get the magic touch from.
Yeah, and then when I played number 6 for Australia, Lockie was still playing fullback. So it was a third test over in England, and we had a heap of injuries. So I played 6 outside Noddy. So it sort of went Freddie, myself, Lockie. So it's a little chink in the gap there, but it's still a jersey that I've got at home that says number 6 for Australia.
Mate, sensational. That's sensational. I had no idea about that. Mate, so you had a crack at English Super League. Wasn't your cup of tea?
No, I didn't actually make it over there. So
a bad dad joke.
Yeah, it's cup of tea. Just got that. I didn't actually make it over there. So I had a charge from when I was younger at the Roosters, or a couple of years prior, and it was a charge of a frame. My mate was in a fight with 2 blokes. I came and grabbed one and got pepper sprayed and got charged. So unfortunately, the British, they sent all their convicts here, and they don't want to take any of them back. And obviously, I put in an appeal. I didn't get granted the visa at first, but then put in an appeal and showed what I had done off the field and what sort of commitment I would make to the community and corporate partners. They'd already sold a number of Crocker jerseys and stuff, so it was a bit of hype around town. But yeah, after, I think I waited, all in all, I was on Billy Slater's couch for 4 months waiting.
Is that right?
For that appeal to come through. So yeah, we'd packed up the whole house ready to move, and just before Christmas they said no. So went through the appeals process and didn't get notified until I think it was the end of April, and then got into talks and obviously came to the Rabbitohs. So it was a frustrating time. Like, I was paying 2 mortgages at the time, wasn't getting paid. I was living on my mate's couch. He just had a baby, so a 6-month-old baby. I couldn't train at the Storm, and it was a really tough period, but it gave me that time to get away and freshen up and sort of mentally drive me back into it. So yeah, obviously when you've got no other options, you can't go. I wanted to go overseas because I wanted to travel and experience life in a different world. But at the end of the day, I sit back and football was my life at the time, and I needed to make the most of it while I could. I was turning 29 that year, so I still had a few years left of footy. I knew that. My body felt good. But yeah, I just needed to focus on where I wanted my attention to be. So I had to think about what was most important, and the most important thing to me was football. So travel, everything else could wait, and I could be able to do that at my own time. Yep. But I just needed to get that drive back, and sitting at home and thinking about it does tend to get your motivation back for what you want to do.
And did you have someone managing your training at that stage, or just someone pushing you or any direction
Not
at all?
Really, no. I'd pop into Storm training every now and then and do some stuff with their rehab boys or different things, but I couldn't wear any of the gear and I couldn't really be around the group, so it was difficult for me. I did a heap of bike rides and just spent a heap of time on the open roads down there. It's obviously a great place to ride a bike, Melbourne. There's plenty of good bikeways and stuff, so I'd do a heap of rides and a heap of good hills down there. So that's pretty much all I did. I would, it would have been great to be able to do more, but yeah, it was difficult. I literally thought every week that I'd be leaving for for England. So I didn't really plan for a 4-month layoff of not being able to train properly.
So how did you get into the mighty South Sydney Pico? How did you join Pico's team?
It came down to, I think, New Zealand and the Rabbitohs, and they were both fairly similar in terms of contract length and financial remuneration.
Were you managing yourself at this stage?
No, I had a guy looking after me, so he had to deal with all that. And but I saw an opportunity at South. They had started doing some much better recruitment. They got some really good players before them, Roy Asatasi and a couple of other guys. So they were building towards something. They were sort of on that fringe of being able to push really hard into the finals. But so I came there, and it was a weird feeling at the time. Like I know going to new clubs and different clubs, or when players come in, it's usually there's a bit of hype, and it's a new kid in school, so there's a bit of excitement. But I remember walking into Redfern that first day, and it was underground. I think it was raining outside, and it was dark. It was miserable, and there was no mood or atmosphere at all. And I was sort of saying good day to everyone. Everyone's heads down. They're off the back of a few losses, so it was a really weird feeling to come into. And went out to train, and the boys were huddled with their hoods on their heads under the grandstand at Redfern, and I was like, what are you guys doing? I said, well, we're waiting to train. It's like, yeah, but why don't we just go out and start kicking the ball and warm up? And they're like, it's raining. Yeah, we're going to get wet anyway. So I grabbed Adam Reynolds. There was a big puddle down in the corner, so I said, kick that ball in that puddle, I'll show you how to score a try. So I kicked the ball, I slid down like 20 metres, scored the try, got up, and then all of a sudden everyone's out playing, and we're starting to have fun in the rain. So little things like that.
That was quite risky to take a dive in the water at the old Redfern.
No, it was once they did it up,
okay.
Yeah, it was all good. They did a good job of that refurb. But yeah, it was surreal because I saw all these young kids were on good money, and it was a chore to them. Like coming into training was a chore for them, and they were like, "Oh, it's a long week this week," and it's just something I had never thought about. It was just talk about that gratitude, like making the most of that opportunity. If you're coming into training thinking it's a chore and it's going to be a long week, it's a bloody hard year. It's a bloody hard year to go through if you're like that every day. So bringing that fun back and being able to experience it with young kids and help them develop was something special.
So, mate, did you get the big call from Russ? Like, how'd it go down?
I had a voicemail. I actually left on my phone for a while because I love his voice.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, I can't do it justice, but
I reckon you can.
Hi, Michael Russell Crowe. Just want to let you know that we'll do everything we can to look after you. And I actually remember his number because it had a lot of sevens in it, so I could recite that for a while. Told one of my friends his number, and he used to call him a few times on the drinks.
He didn't, did he?
Bad decision from me because he had a good memory with his numbers. Yeah. But what you've got to love about Russell is what he did for the game and for the club, and his passion for rugby league. He's a great bloke who loves his league. He loves a beer. And he's done so much to keep that club, get that club to where it is. So obviously, along with a number of other people, but it's a club it's got such a rich history, and the fans, and the book of feuds, and all these little things that go a long way. And you hear all the stories from past players and different things that it really. It's a culture that you can't just brush the past. You've really got to embrace like what they've done for the game and throughout the game, and what they've been through. Being kicked out of the competition, then coming back. So to play for them and to cap them was a very special feeling.
And when did you captain them?
My last year, 12 and 13, last 2 years.
What was the difference running on as a captain versus a player when it came to the on-field, but also the off-field side of it?
Yeah, I don't think, for me it wasn't too much. So leadership for me is about actions and what you do. So I've always been a lead by example type guy, training and, like I said, earning and learning respect. You lead with your actions first, then you earn respect by what you're doing. So, and then once you feel like you've earned that respect, then you feel more comfortable talking. And I sort of think that over the years I developed into a better leader by being able to communicate expectations to other people, so what we had to do off the field, or standards around the club, and how we had to push ourselves and drive ourselves. So I think that for me was no different than running out first in front of the team or third. I was doing exactly the same job, and on the field obviously the only difference is talking to referees, and I learned some pretty good lessons when I was younger where I didn't abuse referees, but it used to be only one TV game a week, and if I thought it was a bad call, I think it was Kelvin Jeffs, I told him that he'd be in reserve grade next week, and he was carrying on because it was a TV game, and every game I played under Kelvin after that, I got stung a lot of penalties. So it was him and another one, Mogsheen Jadwat. Not that I got in verbals with them, but I was a little bit lippy as a young kid, and definitely it was to my detriment because I was definitely targeted after that, which rightly so. I needed to show a lot more respect for the officials, and as I grew older, having a decent conversation with them doesn't change their mind, but at least it gets them thinking. And if you talk to them with respect and a bit of humility, they generally listen.
So have you ever had anything overturned by having that little chat on the field?
No, but I think it definitely plants the seed for them next time to make sure that they're thinking about what I've said. Okay. I think you look at Cameron Smith now; he's the best at. It's not manipulation either. It's just having that conversation and gets them thinking about how they can be consistent in different regards.
Yeah. Nice. So, mate, back to the Bunnies. As a leader, did you step up? And I know you said you didn't make a lot of changes because you lead by example, but the resilience and the gratitude that you'd been mentored under down in Melbourne. Obviously, when you go into a leadership role and people who take on leadership, there's two types of leaders in my mind, but did you pretty much in your head open the textbook of what you were taught down there? Because it sounds like it was an amazing upbringing through that part of your career. Did you bring that to the? I mean, it's impossible to say did the Melbourne brand come to South brand, because that'd be a stupid thing to say. I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is, did you bring a different level of Croc to the team?
I don't think so. I think I bought myself as who I was. I was in Melbourne. My first year down there, I was 25, turning 26. I was in the leadership. Got put in the leadership group. Was a co-captain that year. So I'd always felt like a leader down there because I came in and I was a rep player, and I just felt like I had that standing. I obviously, again, through my actions down there and how I trained in the pre-season, I earned the right to be respected. And I did the same with the Rabbitohs. Obviously came in midway through the year, but trained hard and got onto the field. And just, like I said, with that energy and positivity, I just wanted to drive that and make sure that everyone was loving what they were doing at training and on the field.
Because, you said you're going to bring the fun.
Yeah, and then getting together. So it's not that I was planning social outings and stuff, but we were getting together on our day off and we'd have 10 to 15 blokes having breakfast and going for a swim, and we'd have no phones. If the first person to look at their phone was a fine, so not a fine, but someone got to write a text message to a random person on their phone that had free reign. So,
oh, wow.
So it was, so anyone who looked at their phone, they'd be in strife. So we put the phones away. We could take a photo and they could post it after, but It was always about sitting down at the table, talking to each other, just getting to know each other, hearing stories and just being normal. And it was something I think worked really well for us. We had a heap of young kids that came through the under-20 system at the Rabbitohs together. So they were a slow group. And we had a couple of older guys like myself and Roy, and then Sammy Burgess came over, and Luke Burgess and Matty King. So just trying to gel those different characters into one team, and I think it made a big difference having those times where we just had to ourselves. It was away from football. You could talk about anything. You have fun, and you really bond and get to know each other. And the more that you love each other as mates, the more you're going to play for each other. So it's something that I have always seen as critical in a team, to make sure you've got those environments where people know that they can trust and rely on each other. And
are you doing a lot of talking these days in relation to that leadership? I mean, people love a good sports story.
Yeah, I do a little bit in corporate lunches and stuff like that, but it's something that it's hard for me. Like, I was doing some work with McGrath Real Estate, and I was trying to write out my story to do a open mic type thing where I come in and speak for 40 minutes and just have that story mapped out. And I was writing it like an autobiography, so it was too much. So I've got to strip it down and get to the key points. But there's, like you said, there's a number of different things in leadership and success and what I have seen and how I have been around different environments that have created that success. So, and it's pretty simple. It's a lot of it comes down to effort, and optimism and positive energy and different things like that. So obviously the hard work's underpins it all. There's no easy way around success. There's no shortcuts to it. But yeah, if you have that positive energy and effort into it, and you're going to drive yourself to get there, no matter what you're doing, it's going to be successful. So being able to relay that to businesses and different. I actually spoke with the Gold Coast Suns earlier this year. It was the first time I'd really spoken about that level of competing, especially throughout training. So everything you do at training, if you're competing as hard as you can on every effort, you're going to be. It becomes habit. So once you're out in the field, it's second nature to you. So it's something I'm interested in, but I'd just love to be able to express it more without gibbering too much.
No, mate, people love it. So look, just tapping towards the end of this. I think we've got people going for over an hour now. So some people will be going, gee, I've got another life outside of this. Mate, what's some things you could tell an up and coming athlete, any sport, like to look at leading into where they want to go?
So I think that competitive drive, so the buzzword in all sports is resilience, right?
Yep.
So I think resilience, like success, is an outcome of different things. So for me, if you're competing every day to be the best you can be, no matter what it is, whether it's you're playing cricket in the hallway, or you're doing weights and you're pushing your partner, or you're doing a sprint drill and you're trying to beat your mate, like anything, even if you relate that to a business, so if you're doing whatever you can to hit your KPIs, then you're going to be better. And that creates that habit of you as a person that's going to put in effort. But then the positive energy side of things, I think, is really important. If you have that positive optimism about what's going to happen, and the positive energy around you and the fun that you're going to have around training, I think that really builds resilience, because you don't really know how resilient you are until you need it, till you actually go through that adversity. But if you put these things in place and you're doing all those things right, then you've pretty much always got it. So if you strip it right back, you go, okay, what do I have to do now? I've been through adversity, whether it's injury or family issues, whatever it is. You just got to then focus on what you do next, and if it's your next effort and you've got to do it as hard as you can, then you compete, and then you think positively about the outcomes of what you're going to do, and then you surround yourself with good people that bring that energy up.
I love that.
It's pretty simple for me, and I think every kid, if you sat there and went to all sporting teams and asked every kid if they were competitive, 99% would say they put their hand up. As a kid, they're competitive. So at school, I used to finish everything I could as fast as I could, and look around to see if I beat everyone in the room. So you obviously learn over time. It's not about how fast you get it done. You've got to have that quality involved in it as well. So that's just that competitiveness in me. I wanted to win first. But then obviously as you grow older, it's got to be better. So if you then ask that same group, if they say, yes, that's me, I'm competitive, and if you ask them if they compete as hard as they can on every effort at every training session they're at, you'd probably get 50% say, oh yeah, I do. So you've got to have that intensity every time that you're in there, and that's where that sports science comes in, because you're not going to overcook yourself. If you're pushing yourself every time, and then you get that rest, and then when you get in the field, you're going to be a better player for it, because you know that you've done what you can to prepare.
Nice. So, mate,
have fun. If you're not enjoying it, it's not.
It's all aspects of life, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
a performance that make it
so
fun.
draining. Just have fun. And if you're not that fun person, there's always one in the club. So get around them. Get around that person who brightens your day. When they walk in, there's always someone that walks into a room, and everyone feels lighter and more relaxed.
Yeah, nice. So, mate, that rig of yours, how are you keeping it fit these days? What are you doing?
Not as much as I'd like to. Finally, so after I don't want this to be a sob story, but I've had a heap of injuries. I had 25 surgeries, and I know there are a lot of people a lot worse off than me, but I was okay for the first 4 or 5 years. I could do stuff, I could run around, but the last couple of years, especially, I played a bit of NFL last year, played 2 games and tore my hammy, and I try and run and do different things down. I've torn my plantar fascia and Achilles tendonitis, and I've got some rheumatoid arthritis, and things are starting to really slow me down, and I can't do what I would like to do, and it gets frustrating, but I just need to find something to do. So at times I'll work with a mate, do some labouring, do some concreting, because it's the best exercise for me. I get more dopamine out of working 6 hours than I will out of training an hour a day and pushing myself. have that structure, have that discipline, and you're around guys that you can have a laugh with. So that's actually been really good for me. It keeps me grounded and makes me, really go out and want to be a good person, because hard work, I don't think you can replace it.
Yep.
And like, I love training, but I also, it's one that I can get myself in trouble with, because I can't hold back from training as hard as I can. So it comes at a cost to me at times, and I guess I need to find something where I can't push myself to that point where I'm breaking my body down, and I need to be able to
Back on that bike.
manage. Yeah, I will get on, literally back on the bike.
Queensland's a little different to Melbourne with cycling, though.
Why?
Just what people think on the roads,
Oh, they're dry.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I love ergos and stuff like that. So there's plenty of things that I can do. I just have to get myself into the shape where I can consistently do it over time, because I go through phases where I'll train really hard for a month, and then my body will break down, I'll have a rest, and then I get lazy, and then it takes ages to get back into it. So yeah, I've got to find something consistent. I need to surf more too. I need to be
Mate, get you on a surfboard any day.
I know. I get out in the water with my dog. I love it. I live on the Gold Coast. I should be in the water
Exactly.
every day.
What are you doing? I'll have a surf this weekend.
My girl works me too hard.
She's hard.
Too many chores.
I know we said nice things about her earlier, but they're not true, really.
I love doing work for you.
Mate, it's been sensational having a chat. I really appreciate you for coming on. You've been a part of our family and story for since we started in sport.
No,
So,
I can't thank you guys enough for everything you've done for me. I'm forever grateful for the support you've given me, the education you've given me, and the friendship and wisdom has been second to none.
Oh, well, he's doing some more years. Thanks,
Legend, thank you.
mate. Legend. Today's podcast was brought to you by our partners in Fit, Happy and Healthy, ASN, Nutrition Warehouse, DY Discount Vitamins, Fat Burners Only, Evelyn Faye, Mr. Supplement, or find a retailer online at bodyscience.com.au/retailers.